Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lucy Greenhill, and I lead our Blue Economy portfolio at HMC. And yes, I don't represent a sector, but I am going to talk about what a sustainable economy is and what we need to do to make progress towards one. So anyone who's engaged with the blue economy will know there's no one single definition out there. And I'm not going to describe the many definitions there are, but instead summarize some key differences in interpretation which can create confusion. So first of all, we have the traditional view of the blue economy, so also called the ocean or maritime economy. So this is all your economic activities at sea, so fishing, shipping, tourism, and emerging sectors like renewable energy and biotechnology. And this is a popular term with politicians and economists because it can be measured in terms of contribution to GDP and aligns with national economic ambitions. But the problem with this interpretation is that it doesn't promote change away from business as usual or really address the trajectory of environmental decline. So even though the blue in the blue economy should be enough, like the green economy, which somehow manages to keep the green as central to the concept, the European Commission, UNEP, WWF, and others have seen the need to define a sustainable blue economy. So this is all about striking a balance between economic growth, ecosystem health, and social equity. It emphasizes developing sustainable approaches to marine and coastal sectors, including decarbonizing shipping and sustainable fisheries management. And alongside this, taking action to recover nature, including through nature-based solutions. And this aligns with key frameworks such as the UN Sustainable Development Goals and supports integrating these into the ambitions of national governments. So at HMC, we've actually been working with UNEP, so the United Nations Environment Programme, for around 3 years now on their Sustainable Blue Economy Transition Framework, which should be published in the next month or so. So this framework moves us from a single statement definition and provides key goals which can guide a program of transition across individual sectors. So we have a goal on ecosystems, a social goal on equity, one on climate, and a circular economy. And as outcome statements, they provide the basis of a framework for measuring progress, and the transition framework goes into detail about how this can be done. So to some, the sustainable blue economy approach does not go far enough, and instead are promoting a regenerative blue economy, as most recently set out by the IUCN. So this advocates for shifting our economic models to put biodiversity and climate at the center, embedding environmental externalities into decision-making, which would then drive the development of circular approaches and prioritize conservation and restoration of natural capital. So oil and gas activities are excluded from this model, with others only allowed if adapted. So this is purposely an ambitious vision of a blue economy and tests us with how radical and how fast we are prepared to be in actively diverting from the status quo, and supports important debates on how to really prioritize the environment and reconsider our approach to growth. So there are many definitions out there used by the World Bank, the OECD, and national governments, and I've put the government of Indonesia's definition there. And they generally include some or all of these words. But I've drawn out these three perspectives, from blue to sustainable to regenerative, to highlight some key differences in interpretation and provide food for thought in terms of whether we are doing enough. And while definitions are important, so like global negotiations, agreeing which words to include in which order, shows political intent and ambition, it stimulates debate and activates wider stakeholders. But these clusters of words and whatever order they put in will always be theoretical, and more is needed to understand the practical change needed on the ground. So moving on from definitions, I offer 4 key insights into how to deliver sustainable outcomes for our oceans and coasts, with examples of how they are or could be approached in practice. And they're really about changing how we do things, and to help us think about how they might be reflected in the important work we're all engaged in. And actually, many of them echo strongly what Jamie presented just before. So number 1, we need to be looking at things in an integrated way. So as we're discussing, our current 2030 ambitions are demanding, with potential for conflict and a need for coordination. So clear policy direction means addressing trade-offs head-on and the difficult conversations needed about how to achieve multiple ambitious policy targets. In some cases, this might mean acknowledging that we can't have it all, but then being transparent in our prioritization and what has to give in order for other objectives to be achieved. And working together in new ways is essential to develop a coordinated approach and aligned strategies. So in practice, ideally, there's an overarching policy or strategy, and we see many examples of these globally, such as the various blue economy roadmaps, national ocean policies, Scotland's blue economy vision, the UK marine policy statement, although that's a bit outdated now. Well, whatever this instrument is called, the main thing is that it clarifies the overall direction of travel and incorporates different but interlinked commitments and goals and provides the basis for cross-government working. And then marine planning is a critical delivery tool in this, which we've been hearing about, as this can take this integrated policy framework and then steer decision-making. And the development of Scotland's National Marine Plan 2 is really grappling with this just now. And the work of the Crown Estate, which we've just heard about from Jamie, is supporting this coordinated thinking, including helping us visualize future scenarios to then decide together how to manage them. And across the UK, we are seeing a push for strategic approaches to energy and to nature restoration, and bringing these strategic efforts together will be a key challenge going forward. So linking to the above, and we've heard a lot about this already today, and I wonder if system approaches will be the theme emerging, but we need to be looking at the full system, so the wider sociological system, or the system of people and nature, to explore the influence of policy and decision-making within it. Systems are really complex, and our understanding will never be perfect, but bringing a systems perspective to what we do helps explore how decisions and policies may overlap, to recognize and avoid unintended consequences, and to understand how efficiencies can be made, including through collaboration with others. So working with ICF, we recently supported a project for DEFRA, so the Marine and Fisheries Department, to understand how to deliver a vision for ocean sustainability, and this was really interesting. So similarly to, as Brendan was discussing earlier, we developed a participatory system map through iterative workshops to help DEFRA explore how policy decisions might lead to changes directly but also indirectly, identify actions to be taken to avoid negative consequences, and to understand where they can work with others more effectively. So this highlighted cross-cutting factors like data and evidence, which underpins all policy delivery and the opportunities for efficiencies there, as well as the cross-cutting nature of climate change, which affects everything and requires a whole system response. But then the really interesting bit of this for me, and sorry, it looks like the logos have moved around a bit, was then looking at the organizational change that will be needed to operate in a more system-based way. So taking that system map and thinking, well, what would need to change internally for us to reflect this in reality? So the key things here are shared vision and values to support alignment across departments, as well as changes in how policy is made, knowledge and data systems, staff training, and accountability. So this is really interesting and hopefully will lead to positive change. So the third insight to emphasize, and this really echoes everything, especially in Diana's talk this morning, it's not new, but it's fundamental to shifting how we do things. And it's about engaging a wide range of people, expanding beyond government to the people and communities affected by policy, including as many voices as possible at the right time. So in practice, some learning from the Diverse Values Project under the Sustainable Management of Marine Resources research program. Some insights here was about looking beyond marine policy to other drivers, including the just transition, well-being, even EDI, to understand synergies and pool resources and addressing social goals. It's about working more closely with local partnerships and voluntary organizations in a multi-level way, which we heard a lot about earlier, and clarifying decision-making so that the purpose of engagement and potential influence is understood, that process literacy term that we're hearing about. And being more innovative in our public participation, including through arts-based methods and ways to support debate. So the fourth and final insight is that we need to be more learning-based, recognizing the complexity of the challenges we face in achieving a sustainable blue economy and building learning into our activities. So this means reflecting on our experience and being willing to make changes and adapt how we do things based on new understanding, and being more experimental in order to learn more quickly. And in practice, most of us are involved in evaluation of some kind and all the MEL processes out there. And these provide frameworks and opportunity to learn. And the message here is to put more emphasis on the learning aspect of these. And I really like this phrase I heard recently from a learning specialist we're working with about the need to move from seeking to prove to seeking to improve. So about looking beyond results and targets to a learning-led approach which emphasizes understanding how change happens in order to improve over time. And this is particularly valuable in a sustainable brew economy sense where defining outcomes and being able to report against them is difficult. And we recently supported an independent evaluation of the World Bank's support for the blue economy over the last decade, which grappled with this. So exploring what the World Bank meant by a blue economy, as well as understanding whether they were steering progress towards one. So there isn't any one toolkit or approach in progressing towards a sustainable economy, so apologies for not delivering that. It'll be a non-linear process of change based on many nudges and shifts across the system. And we're all working towards sustainability of our oceans and coasts in some way. And I've set out some questions here to help reflect on how these approaches can become the norm in the way that we do things. So I won't read them all out, but integrated, how is this activity supporting greater coordination? How are we addressing trade-offs? What else is going on that we need to connect with? Systems-based, so thinking how are we promoting a system-based way of working and how can we internally reflect that? Being collaborative and participatory, and thinking about the frameworks you have in place to support learning and how you can emphasize the learning part in it. So, in summary, high-level definitions are useful and can promote political buy-in, but are less important in driving practical change. There is no blueprint for implementing a sustainable blue economy, and approaches will be different everywhere, and progress will be non-linear and messy. But the key is to really recognize this complexity and get comfortable being uncomfortable and take this on by operating in a more coordinated and integrated way, being more systems-based, participatory and collaborative, and recognizing that learning really matters and embedding this in everything that we do. Thanks so much for listening, and happy to answer questions and come and see us at our panel.